It started on a night when the house smelled of gasoline and anger. The clock had just passed 10, and the world outside was quiet, except for the low hum of the old refrigerator and the faint sound of my son's sniffles from the next room. My father was pacing the living room again, beer bottle in hand, muttering about respect and discipline the way some men pray, low, rhythmic, and ugly. I'd grown up listening to it, the sound of his temper tightening before it struck. But now it wasn't just my skin that burned from his words, it was my son's. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I was washing dishes when I heard it, the crack, followed by a choked sob. The kind of sound that tears your body in half before your mind catches up. I dropped the glass in my hand and ran. My son was on the floor beside the coffee table, one hand shielding his face, the other clutching the small toy truck he always kept near. My father towered above him, belt still dangling from his hand. "What did you do?" I screamed, rushing toward them. He turned slowly, his eyes cold, unfazed. "He lied," he said. "And in this house, liars get corrected." "He's 7!" I shouted. "He's a child!" Dad stepped forward, his breath heavy with alcohol. "And you? You're a disgrace. You should thank me for trying to fix what you clearly failed to raise." My mother was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, a bowl of fruit in her lap like this was a movie she'd seen before. Her expression never changed. "Say something," I yelled at her. "You're just going to sit there?" She peeled an orange and said quietly, "You were worse at his age." Something inside me broke then, the kind of break that doesn't heal cleanly, that leaves edges sharp enough to cut. I pulled my son up into my arms. His face was red, eyes swollen, lip trembling. "It's okay," I whispered. "It's okay, baby," Dad snorted. "Don't baby him, that's why he's soft." And then, I screamed. I don't even remember what words came out, only that they weren't enough. Rage poured out of me like blood from an open wound. I screamed that he was a monster, that I hated him, that I wished I'd never been his daughter. I screamed until my throat burned, until my voice broke. He didn't yell back, he just stared. Then, in that terrifying calm of his, he set the belt on the table and walked toward the garage. "Stay right there," he said. My stomach turned. "What are you doing?" But he didn't answer. The garage door creaked open, and for a moment, only silence filled the space. Then came the metallic clatter of tools. Mom kept peeling her orange. "Mom," I said, clutching my son tighter, "what is he doing?" She didn't look up. "You shouldn't have screamed at him. What is he doing?" Finally, she looked at me, eyes as flat and gray as the floor tiles. "If you can't shut her up," she muttered, "seal her like trash." I froze. The words didn't register right away. They floated, heavy, poisonous, absurd. Then Dad came back into the room. He was holding a tube of industrial glue, the same kind he used in his repair shop. "Dad, please." He didn't even speak. He grabbed my arm and the glue's chemical smell hit me so fast it made me dizzy. I tried to push him off, but he was stronger, always stronger. My mother didn't move. She didn't blink. He pressed the tube against my mouth. The world went white. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. My son screamed for me instead. His tiny voice echoing off the walls, begging, pleading, "Stop! Grandpa, stop!" My father finally let go. My lips burned, stuck together by a thick, searing seal. The glue hardened fast. I fell to my knees, gasping through my nose, shaking. Mom sighed. "You shouldn't have provoked him," she said. "He hates loud women." My son was trembling beside me. I tried to say his name, tried to tell him it was going to be okay, but all that came out was a muffled whimper. Dad wiped his hands on a towel, calm as ever. "Now she'll learn," he said. "Some mouths aren't worth opening." And then, like nothing had happened, he turned off the living room light. I sat there in the dark, the glue drying against my lips, my son clutching my arm so tightly I could feel his heartbeat through his fingertips. That night, I didn't sleep. Every breath felt like fire. Every sound felt like betrayal. My son lay beside me, still crying in his sleep. And in the silence between his sobs, I made myself a promise, one that would take everything I had left to keep. I wouldn't scream again, not until it was them who couldn't. The next morning, the sun came in like an accusation. Too bright, too indifferent. I stood in front of the mirror in the bathroom, peeling the hardened glue from my lips in strips that tore skin and left raw patches. Every movement stung, but I didn't flinch. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. My voice came back in hoarse whispers. I didn't speak to him, not to her either. I served breakfast like a ghost, silent, moving through the kitchen like I didn't exist. Dad barely looked at me. Mom tapped her spoon on her teacup and said, "She's finally learning respect." My son sat quietly at the table, his eyes darting between us like a child at war. He was afraid to chew too loud. After they left for church, without inviting me, of course, I began my ritual. While the house was empty, I started documenting. Not just the bruises on my son's shoulder, or the split lip I'd hidden for years. I photographed the glue tube, still carelessly tossed in the garage corner. I took a picture of the belt, the dented coffee table, the corner where my son always curled up when he sensed violence brewing. But I wasn't building a case for police. I was building memory. I didn't want to expose them. I wanted to erase them. I waited. Days went by. I said nothing, responded to no insults. When Dad made a cruel joke at dinner about how I looked like I'd been chewing on gravel, I smiled slightly and said, "I'll wear lipstick tomorrow." He looked surprised. Mom looked pleased. "That's better, see? She can be pretty if she shuts up." But that wasn't lipstick I wore. I started wearing red like armor. Lipstick, scarf, earrings. Every day a deeper shade, until it looked like war paint. They thought I was recovering. What I was doing was rehearsing. I went to the old storage boxes in the attic and pulled out everything they hated. My college acceptance letter they never let me use. My baby blanket they said wasn't worth saving. My childhood journals they once threatened to burn. I laid them out on my bed like a crime scene and remembered who I was. I began teaching my son how to pack small. "If we ever need to go somewhere fast," I told him, "you grab this bag, okay?" He nodded, trusting me without questions. He didn't need to know the plan. He just needed to know that someday, we wouldn't be here. The final trigger came one evening, when my son cried quietly in the bathroom. Dad had yelled at him for spilling a glass of milk, called him weak, said, "Your mother made you soft like her." I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I tucked my son into bed that night and waited until their bedroom door closed. Then I crept into the garage, pulled the old camping cooler from the shelf, and opened the false bottom I'd built years ago. Inside was a collection of things I'd hidden like relics: emergency cash, a flip phone with no contacts, my son's birth certificate, a spare key to the neighbor's shed, and a half-used prepaid card I'd found in Mom's purse after she threw it away. I didn't sleep. I lay beside my son and memorized his breathing pattern. I whispered his name like a prayer. The next day, I told my parents I was taking my son to a library program for kids. Mom waved me off without looking up from her nails. Dad muttered, "Make sure he learns something useful for once." They didn't even ask when we'd be back. That's how little I mattered. That's how little he mattered. We walked past the library and kept walking, past the town limits, past the bus stop, past the silence that used to bind me. I didn't cry. I didn't run. I just walked. We got on a bus with one stoplight and no return ticket. We rode until the city lights made my son blink from the window like he'd never seen anything so alive. In a city 200 miles away, I checked into a shelter under a different name. I enrolled my son in a small school where no one asked who his grandparents were. I got a job cleaning motel rooms during the day, waiting tables at night. And all the while, I said nothing to my parents. No calls, no texts, no address, no photos. They didn't even know we were gone. Until a neighbor knocked on their door 2 weeks later and asked, "Hey, Haven't seen your daughter in a while. You guys okay? Mom called me 37 times. Left voicemails ranging from worried to furious to manipulative. Come home, don't make this dramatic. Then, how dare you humiliate us like this? Then, we were trying to help you grow. Dad called once. That voicemail was short. You think you can run from us, ungrateful trash? I didn't delete it. I saved it. I was waiting. Because they still had one thing left to lose. And I was about to take it from them. 3 months passed before they finally found me. Not because I was careless, because they were predictable. My mother could never stand being ignored. She found the shelter number through the cousin I once trusted, the same cousin who believed every lie she ever told about me. It was a Friday afternoon when I saw her name flash across the phone at the front desk. The volunteer looked nervous. "It's someone claiming to be your mother," she said. I took the phone, breathing slow. "Where are you?" Mom's voice was tight, angry beneath her feigned concern. "Do you have any idea what you've done? People are talking. Your father's furious." "Good," I said softly. "What?" I said good. She exhaled sharply. "You've embarrassed us. You left without a word. You made us look like we drove you out. You need to come back. We can forget all this." I interrupted. "He glued my mouth shut, Mom." Silence. "Do you remember that?" I asked. "Because I do. I still taste the chemicals when I try to eat. My son still flinches when he hears your name." Her tone dropped to something almost pleading. "You know how your father is. He loses control sometimes. But he still loves you. You're overreacting." I smiled bitterly. "You said that when I was 8 too. When he broke my nose." "That was an accident." "No," I whispered. "I was the accident. You just never had the guts to admit it." I hung up. That night, I sat at the small kitchen table in our new apartment, just 2 chairs, 1 lamp, and a cracked window letting in the city noise. My son was asleep in the next room. He had started humming in his sleep lately, like the world had finally stopped feeling dangerous. I looked down at the old flip phone, the one with Dad's voicemail still saved. I pressed play. "You think you can run from us? Ungrateful trash." I hit record on my newer phone and played the message again, letting the sound bleed into the cheap speaker mic until it distorted. Then I uploaded it, not to social media, not to the world, just to one place, the church group my mother ran online, where she posted photos of family unity and faith in healing. The caption I added was simple: "Even angels have rotten wings when you get close enough." I didn't need to say their names. Everyone in town knew their voices. By morning, the account was gone. Deleted. The calls started again, this time frantic, angry, desperate. "What did you do?" Mom screamed in one voicemail. "You're ruining us," Dad growled in another. But there was something different this time. Something fragile in their anger. They were unraveling, and they knew it. I didn't answer. Not once. A week later, I got a letter. No return address, but I knew her handwriting. Inside was a photo. Me, age 5, sitting on the front porch with my father behind me. He had his hand on my shoulder, smiling for the camera. I looked terrified. On the back, she had written, "Families forgive, you should too." I stared at it for a long time. Then I walked outside, dropped it in the trash can, and lit it with a match. The paper curled, blackened, and fell in on itself, like the past finally collapsing into ash. When my son came home from school, he ran into my arms, excited. "Mom, I made a drawing! It's us in our new house." I looked down. He had drawn 2 stick figures holding hands under a blue sky. A small note at the bottom said, "No yelling here." Tears blurred my vision. I kissed his forehead. "That's beautiful, baby." That night, after he fell asleep, I stood by the window again. Somewhere out there, my parents were probably sitting in their quiet house, the one filled with trophies, framed smiles, and silence sharp enough to cut through. They had built their world on control, and now they had nothing left to command. For the first time, I felt peace. Not revenge, not justice, just peace. I whispered into the empty room, barely a breath. You sealed my mouth once. Now I'm the one who doesn't need to speak. And outside, the city hummed back, soft and steady, as if it already knew. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.